Welcome back to another KSP video. In this video I'm going to be building a gigantic mobile base for Minmus. About 2 videos ago I launched an entire Saturn V to Minmus. If you haven't seen that video already, make sure to check that out. I'll leave a link in the description, and while you're down there, make sure you click that like and subscribe button and make sure notifications is on. Okay, enough of the YouTube stuff. But essentially, the lower stage of that Saturn V is only about 3/4 of the way filled with fuel. So I need to fill that up the rest of the way, and I can do that by using mining equipment and fuel tanks on this rover. And I'm putting Science Junior modules on the outside, solar panels on the top. Science Junior, are they called the Science Junior? I'm going to say that they're called Science Junior because I don't remember. The biggest drills in the game, the largest ore converters, some RTGs, some reaction wheels, some batteries, solar panels, some radiators, and then one of the scanning arms, which I thought just kind of looked cool, because the scanning arm's pretty cool. And then I added some science equipment to the back, and those like junior science modules on the side, I don't know what they're called, but they allow the storage of like 20 some Kerbals. And now I'm finishing up the design here, adding the radiators on, and then I think it's hooking up the reaction wheels, and then getting ready to test the rover just to make sure everything is working properly. And I think we're going to crossfade to test right about now. Yep. So here's the test of the vehicle. The solar panels deploy properly. Put on the brakes, the vehicle stops, the vehicle turns. With Action Group 1, I can deploy all the solar panels and activate the drills with Action Group 1 and 2, and then I can just activate the convertitrons to whatever I want them to. Then finishing up some of the action groups and installing some communication systems, because this launch will not harbor any crew, as this rocket does not have an abort system or is not really capable of supporting crew, and if something were to go wrong on the rocket, crew would die. So we have to launch crew in another video. In the next video, I'll be launching a SSTO to Minmus to get the crew to this Minmus base. And they'll be able to dock the base with the Saturn V, which will hopefully then be able to be refueled. Now this might take because the Saturn V's tanks are so huge. But now we are building the rocket that will lift this thing to Minmus, which has to be insanely gigantic. And I made a little bit of mistake and kind of give the upper stage it was a little bit underpowered. It kind of feels like a nuclear engine almost. It's way too underpowered. I should use like an F1 engine, maybe like a Rhino engine probably would have been much better. F1 engines on the bottom stage, and then Clydesdale boosters on the outside. The Clydesdale boosters are just kind of awesome, and it makes the whole rocket look kind of like an Ares 5, which I like because the Ares 5 is already a massive rocket. Then we're going to crossfade to launch here. I did actually end up adding a fairing. Engines throttling up, and the launch clamps are released, and the Clydesdale boosters are fired up. And it is incredibly slow. Like, this is 1x speed, so it lifts off very slow. Kind of like a real rocket, actually, which is kind of cool. But now, in a few seconds, I'm going to speed it back up to 8x speed, so that the launch can actually go a little bit faster. The ascent profile could not be very steep because of how top-heavy the vehicle was, especially with that fairing on top. The fairing on top prevented it the fairing on top made it more likely to tip over. Now that we're out of the atmosphere, we can begin now that we're out of the heavy atmosphere, we can begin to pitch over a little bit more. The Clydesdale boosters separate, and we still have all of the main F1 engines running at full power, which provide, I think, just over a 1.5 thrust-to-weight ratio, which is pretty good. But this is the last stage that we'll have that has a decent amount of thrust, and the fairing will be separated here in a little bit, just because of how insanely heavy the fairing was. Like, fairing is super heavy. The fairing just separated there, revealing the awesome mobile landing base that will be on Minmus. I think it's actually a pretty good size for a Minmus base. I mean, I want to build a surface base in the future, just because a surface base can be way bigger than a rover. Granted, I could have made the rover like way bigger, but the rocket that I would have had to use to get it there would have been like double the size of the Ares 5 and would have been insanely huge. We're finishing up the burn here with the F1 engines and then decoupling that stage and activating the second stage, which is just the it's just the skiff engine, and then we're going to get our maneuver out to Minmus. As you can see, we have no connection here. I even extended the little controls panel so we didn't have any connection. So I just had to wait a little bit longer for the vehicle to reach like a connection with Kerbin. I don't know how that works, but it does. I need to put satellites in orbit, but I don't want to because I'm lazy. So yeah, now we're onto the burn, and the burn part takes forever, so this is sped up 8 times speed, plus the alt time warp that's in the game already. And then I actually had to do 2 burns because I would have... To get to Minmus, I was facing towards Kerbin. I would have deorbited myself if I hadn't extended the orbit. I also increased the brightness here, so you can see the rocket on the dark side of Kerbin, and it makes it look way better, and I should have been doing this for all of my videos, but I didn't know it was a thing, so now I do. That's pretty cool. We're now doing our Minmus orbital maneuvering encounter so that we can get a really close periapsis, complete that burn in just a few seconds here, and it didn't take very long. It was just I think an 11 meter a second burn. Warping to the periapsis of Minmus, which has the awesome parallax mod. Would highly recommend the parallax mod. Parallax mod is super awesome. Now we're completing the orbital insertion burn, so that is almost done now. Lowering the apoapsis, and then we have to make a maneuver to get on the same orbital inclination as the Saturn V. Even though the Saturn V is not in orbit, we have to be on the same orbital inclination plane, if that's how you say it. Probably saying it completely wrong, but you know. So now we are adjusted to the Saturn V, and we can just begin our descent burn. And I think, yep, we just lined up Saturn V, and you can probably see the little pink outline. That little pink outline is the Saturn V, and it will render in a few seconds here. And then I'll start at the burn, but we're going to lower it down to 1 time speed here. I realized I was coming in a bit too fast. Like, way too close to the surface and way too fast. So I thought that maybe I could, like, do a hover slam, but that did not end up working. But I hit the ground at a slow enough speed that the entire lower booster completely disintegrated, but the upper stage, the rover, was completely intact, and I gave it 6 thud landing engines so that it could land itself. So I fire up those thud engines and then get ready to land. And we have a nice little touchdown. So I ended up working fine. The booster disintegrated. No space debris, because space debris is cringe. Now we can drive the rover around a little bit once we get it to finally stop. It was just sliding across Minmus. It did not want to stop. So I turned up traction control and brakes all the way up so that it could drive a little bit better. I think I just drove it for a little tiny bit here. And then I showed the, like, how it could mine stuff, because it's pretty cool. Driving along the surface towards the Saturn V. It's going to take a while to get to Saturn V, and I can do that later. Now we're going to activate all of the systems, so back to 1 time speed. Action Group 1, the cargo bay will open up, all the radiators deploy, the solar panels deploy, the drills extend, and then Action Group 2, the drills will start mining. And then I can start the liquid fuel and oxidizer converters to gain fuel. But this is the end of this video. I will see you guys in the next video. Make sure you like and subscribe. Bye for now.